Hey there, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I know I've been absent for a while, and you may be noticing something a little different about the podcast, depending on where you're getting it. Yes, it is a video now. I've been busy focusing on ramping up some YouTube content lately and decided to take the podcast in a direction that fits into my overall content, milieu, if you will. So for today's episode, I sit down to talk with a gentleman named Wells Jones. We all know people who might say they're an overlander, but they're not. This guy falls more into the category of someone who wouldn't call himself an overlander, but is. He's done this on everything from dual sports to camels. Yes, I said camels. You'll just have to listen in. With that said, let's get right into my conversation with Wells. Hello and welcome. My wife Susan and I, we're on a mission to explore the byways of this country to find the food, the people, and even the odd stuff. We're exploring where the roads lead after you leave the interstates behind, and beyond where the roads end. Whether you're thinking about getting started overlanding or rocking a fully built rig, I'll be talking about the places we go and giving tips to make your journeys go smoother. And it all starts now on this episode of The Dirt Road Tourist. Hey folks, today I am joined on the Dirt Road Tourist by Wells Jones. He is a former Navy Antarctic pararescue, let me spit that out, pararescue and survival instructor, American Academy of Dramatic Arts, New York City graduate with off-Broadway commercial, TV, and film credits. He is a traveler with purpose who finds peace doing mountain summits and motorcycle touring. He also has a book out. He is the co-author of this book, A Line in the Sand, and has even been known to do a little low-G overlanding on camels in the deserts of the Middle East. Wells, that's one heck of a resume. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I like the use of your term overland because, and it's been done with all different kinds of transportation.
Yeah, well, I mean, the camel trains that applied the Silk Road for trade, and later on, even the Conestoga wagons moving west on the expansion of the U.S.
Right.
This was overland travel by definition. This was people who were carrying everything that they needed in order to make that trip end to end on their vehicle. They had to carry everything that they needed with them and be self-sufficient to do these, these long distance travels. So that really is the original definition of overlanding. We're just doing a legacy of what they left behind today.
Yeah.
So,
and the overland, I after we met, I started thinking about the different types of overland. I think, like the first round was probably when I was between 12 and 13 with Hans Meyer in Vermont, and Dutchman, and he had just bought, he was a friend of the family, and he and his wife, he had bought a Land Rover, and he had been talking about it to my family, that this new car, this vehicle was coming, that he was going to be able to go up the mountain. And he had bought a mountain, and he had the Ward brothers, a famous group of guys in Vermont that cleared trails, ski trails. And so my first significant overland where you didn't know whether you were going to live or not had to do with being, I don't think there was a seatbelt. There wasn't a seatbelt in the Land Rover. It was like a 1965 or 66 Land Rover.
Yeah, there probably wouldn't have been in that year.
No. And he said, just hold on. And he was kind of new with it. And we started out, I'm literally going up, blazing a trail and going around stumps and then getting to some very significant inclines and turns and ultimately just getting stuck. And he had a Dutch accent. He said, not to worry, we have a winch. And I said, I'm new to this. I'm just a kid. But what fun. I was bouncing around. And literally at times looking out. I can remember later looking out of a helicopter the same way when it banks, and you're in the door and you're
Hmm.
looking down, you're looking down at the ground. But that was my first overland experiences, and I had a number of them, and it would take hours to get up to where the wards had stopped the clearing, and it
Okay.
was exciting, very exciting.
The four-wheel drive aspect and getting out on the trails is definitely, and for most people who consider themselves as overlanding, it's an
Mm-hmm.
important part of it. For me, myself, the way my wife and I we like to do this, it's
Mm-hmm.
more about getting out to some place that we haven't explored before and really exploring, and not
Yeah,
necessarily exploring just the trail or the off-road aspect of it. It's
right.
finding out what makes a place tick. It's looking into some of the historic places. Every place has something that makes it unique, and it can be
Yeah,
a combination of the history of the place, who's
yeah,
moved there and settled
yeah,
the place, the geography, what grows there, what's mined there, what resources that help shape the industry of the area. And
yeah,
it's going out and digging into an area to get to know it, to get to know what makes it tick, and it's
yeah.
trying the local food and things. It's also definitely
Oh,
getting out on trails and getting out
yeah,
and doing some of the four-wheeling stuff. That's a big fun part of it too, because it's seeing stuff that's beyond the usual tourist trap things is really
sure.
what it's about for me. But the entire experience, it's the entire travel experience, and really that's the part of the travel, getting to go to know the people, know the culture, know the area, know what made it, this place into what this place is part
Hmm.
of what enriches you. That's the part that you take home with you when you come back from these travels. It's
It
what makes
certainly
you
is.
grow as a traveler. So that's the
Yeah,
part that all of that is what I find interesting about doing the overlanding, and I just think it's a really, people throw around the word in the travel industry authenticity, but it's a particularly authentic way of traveling and seeing a place. That's what is the
right.
appeal to me. So
Oh,
speaking of trips and authentic trips, you just got
yeah.
back from one, didn't you?
Well, I don't know if you're referring to Havana, Cuba, that I just went to, came back from,
You
or
said
you're
that,
talking
yeah,
about
when we spoke
The
in
Middle
June.
East.
Yeah, when we
Yeah.
said in June, you said you were
Hmm.
actually getting ready to go out on a trip. So I, I was under the understanding you had just gotten back from one.
Yes. No, I have lately my travels have been local, going up mountains and so forth. But
Okay.
I want to reflect on what you just finished saying, because that's how we've been able to tag our adventures, my adventures individually and with Miles Spencer, my co-author,
Hmm.
adventure with purpose, because
Exactly.
there's something underneath it. And I have incorporated that and realized how much that has always been in all the activities that I've done. But the
Hmm.
travel is to see and to hear the stories. And you can deny someone's opinion, but when you go places and you hear stories, Kenneth, that's when we find empathy and we
Yeah.
find the undeniable, and it's authentic. And so we're hearing it from the horse's mouth, as they
Right.
say. And the travel is, I mean, I love the travel. I did just get back from riding my dual sport uh, GS Adventure to LA and
Okay.
flying across the the Mojave Desert. I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and this time people said, "Oh, you're going to go on 60?" And I said, "No, it's got to be fast. I'm going on 40." So that was not avoiding, but certainly getting around several hundred tractor trailers. And
Right.
I mean, but that was quite an adventure, and going through the Mojave Desert, because I thought, you know, oh, it's probably half an hour and I'll be through
Hmm.
it. It's not. But the adventure of going there, stopping, eating in a local cafe, and meeting the people.
That
And
must have been a
certainly,
really nice, cool, refreshing ride going through the Mojave on a motorcycle here this time of year.
I'll tell you, I was watching, I was watching the weather reports, and in the afternoon, I mean, I was seeing 118,
Yeah.
117, but
There's
I
not an air
made sure.
conditioner.
No, but in this time,
Well, there is. It's on the right handle. It'll make the air move, but it doesn't cool it off in any way. So, yeah.
that's so true. It's so true. I will say it's the first time that I planned a trip, that was, around 1,000 miles, a couple of days on a motorcycle, that
Yeah.
I booked a motel.
Right.
Two.
So, do you usually camp
Absolutely.
often whenever you're?
Yeah.
So,
When
yeah,
I'm
what
on,
kind of gear? Well, you mentioned what kind
go
of
ahead.
bike you're actually on. So, what kind of
Yeah.
gear do you usually pack? What's some of your gear? What's your gear loadout look like for the dual sport?
Well, first of all, everything's ultra light.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
my starting with my bedding, I have it's a thermalite. It's the latest thermalite. You can set it on top of ice, and I
Right.
use it in the winter, and I use it all the time, and it's 2.5 inches thick, and
Yeah.
it's just phenomenal. And then I have Western Mountaineering Pack Light, ultralight down sleeping bag.
Uh
I
huh.
figured out that having a tent's a good idea instead of a bivy because of just the kind of conditions that I
Mm-hmm.
run into. And I expect rain and I want rain. Any
Yeah.
kind of any inclement weather just adds more to the adventure and more to the adapting and being engaged in the moment. And so
Right.
I have an MSR 2 man that allows me to get my gear on one side has a little vestibule, and I can put a rain fly on it or not, and have open air. The best time for me is that final check of the campsite, setting things up,
Mm-hmm.
and then lying down and just listening. Looking at the stars and just hearing
Especially when
things.
you can get out far enough to where, and it's getting to be fewer and fewer places in the U.S. anyway where you can do this. But when you can get out far enough to where if you just stop and listen, you don't hear the sound of highway noise anywhere. There's no
Oh,
engine sounds, no,
right.
the hum of tires. And it's almost jarring when you do find it now because there are so few, at least here, I'm on the East Coast. So
Yeah.
you have to get pretty far out there before you lose that on the East Coast because it's so ubiquitous. And it's almost
Right.
jarring when you stop and realize, wow, I don't hear any traffic noise at all.
Does
But
it make you uncomfortable,
no,
or is
not
it
at all. Actually, that's
okay?
mother's milk. That's where I actually start to be able to do kind of an internal reset
Right.
and be able to eh, just completely be able to refresh myself. That's an
Yes.
important part of the experience on there. So
Yes.
yeah, I know a lot of the guys that do this on dual sports, and that's
Right.
actually a big contingent of the overlanding crowd that
Yeah.
do it on two wheels. It's not just us four wheeler guys, but a lot
Right.
of them like they're hammock types. They like to actually pack the hammocks just because of the
Yep.
packability and how small it is. So that's why I was
Hmm.
curious about what your gear loadout was.
Sure. No, I'm set up to survive,
Yeah.
and it's the same stuff that I'll put in a what is it, a 50 liter,
Uh huh.
backpack that I can put the tent in. I can put in, I have uh, a wind stopper
Mm-hmm.
burner
Okay.
stove, and the gear that I have, it stems, going back to the 70s when I was with the pararescue team in Antarctica. One of the beauties of it was many pieces, I assure you,
Yeah.
phenomenal and epic, was getting equipment from, it was a brand new company called MSR,
Yeah.
Mountain Safety Research, their first stove we were testing on the polar plateau,
Yeah.
at 10,000 feet by sickness, and taking it different places. And their tents were new. And so we
Mm-hmm.
had that opportunity. So the appreciation for gear that works, I like to buy it once and use it forever.
Yeah, I have one of their cook kits. I also have one of their stoves that I got back when I was doing Appalachian Trail sectionals back in college.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's still in the drawer of Bonnie of our rig right now. It's still
Yeah.
going strong. So I mean,
Hmm.
that stuff does last forever. So
Yeah.
have you heard of the Backcountry Discovery Route page, the BDRs?
Sure, sure. I ride with guys. My riding started 8 years ago, 9 years ago,
Okay.
and so fortunate. And it was I was encouraged by guys that I mean they just came back from the TT on the Isle of Man to
Uh
watch it,
huh.
but they also toured Ireland. They do the Dolomites. They do you know Crete. They just go
Right.
all over, and it's all dual sport stuff. So getting back to your question again.
Oh, that I was asking about if you had actually were familiar with the BDR and had actually done
Oh,
some of
they
their routes on there.
right, and I know about that. And no, I have not. And Miles, excuse me, Randy and Sandy have, but they when I say they've done that, they've done Colorado, Arizona, and uh, where else? Parts of
They
Montana. All of them.
Yeah, they have actual routes that run all the way from the Canadian border up in Washington all the way down
Hmm.
to Baja.
Hmm.
So the nice thing about them is that these are they offer GPX files that you can download, pop
Yes.
them straight into Gaia or Onyx, and off you go. They
Do
just
you
earlier
ride?
this
Do you ride?
Well, I used to ride. I don't anymore.
Hmm.
We actually I kind of at my age I like to camp more comfortably. I guess you could say.
Hmm.
So it's
Hmm.
we have a 21 Tacoma off road with we have the rooftop tent, we have the drawer
Oh,
system,
wonderful,
everything. So
wonderful.
we tend to camp a little more bougie than you can on the motorcycle, but
But you've earned
it's
that. You've earned
yeah
it.
yeah.
Did you
But the
call? You had a
BDRs
name.
are
You had a name for your
Bonnie.
vehicle.
Yeah, she is Bonnie.
Right. And my bike. I was told this by actual a spiritual leader that I took some courses with
Mm-hmm.
many years ago. He said, name your things that you own. It's something that's close to you. So my bike is called Jacket, and
Okay.
it's like the perfect name for it. It's an adventure, so it's got a big tank. It happens to be yellow. Everything else is black. And
Well,
sometimes like,
there you
oh,
go.
because
That writes itself. It's Yellow Jacket.
it's Yellow Jacket.
There you
But you
go.
know what? It's just the word. It
Yeah.
says what that bike does. It's a jacket. It's like boom.
Yeah, I'm chomping at the bits actually because the BDR they came out with well they've been working this for several years, a couple of years now, because they
Mm-hmm.
have the East Coast. They finally gave the East Coast some love, so they had done the
Good.
Northeast BDR first. That starts from the Canadian border, goes in New Hampshire, runs down through Pennsylvania. Then they did the
Wonderful.
Mid Atlantic one, which picks up the Pennsylvania line, goes all the way down to Damascus, Virginia. And earlier this year, I think it was in March or April, they actually released a Southeast one that picks up in Damascus and goes all the way down to the Gulf
All the
Coast, down
way.
to Navarre. And I really
Fantastic.
have been chomping at the bit to do that. We've kind of had other stuff going. We've got a big Michigan Upper Peninsula trip that's coming up next
Mm-hmm.
month, end of next month. So we're kind of getting geared up and getting planned for it. But I do want to do that BDR because these BDR routes are also very popular with the four wheel overland
I
trout as
didn't
well.
know that. I didn't know that because I
Yes.
just know the guys that take the pictures of wherever they are, and they've proven that they've done, the whole deal, and it's epic. It's gorgeous.
Well, if you've got a four wheel drive, a Jeep, or a four by four, it's a great way to get started overlanding
Yep.
because these routes are not, the guys on the dual sports, they're not mapping trails that are like boulder hopping
Hmm.
extreme four by four because that's not the kind of environment that you take a dual sport or a touring bike into. These are designed, with mostly Forest Service roads. It's a lot of gravel. They stitch, these
Hmm.
routes together with as little as
Hmm.
pavement as they possibly can.
Sure.
But if you're trying to get into overlanding, that is a fantastic way because they really do curate the routes very
Hmm.
well in terms
Hmm.
of trying to pick routes that go to interesting places, really scenic
Yes.
places that
Yes.
are just great roads of travel. So I
Yeah.
really want to do that southeastern one. Um,
Oh, that
if
sounds
anybody that's
fantastic.
listening is, yeah, if anybody listening is not familiar with Backcountry Discovery Route page, I'll actually be putting a link to them in the show notes. So you can be able to find that and go there from there.
Good. I'm going to
So,
toss that to my friends, Kenneth, the guys, because they have
yeah.
family in Tennessee and in North Carolina and places, and so
Hmm.
I'm sure they'd be looking for places to
Yeah,
go.
these routes are fantastic. They're great and they're very easily accessible. Like I said, you just download the GPX files and you've got
Yeah,
your whole route laid out for you.
yeah.
So, before we get a little bit further here on this, I wanted to kind of dive into kind of your background in terms of where did this love of travel, the love of adventure, everything really kind of start for you? Yeah,
Well,
where did that come from childhood?
maybe it was in the DNA. My mother is Pacific Northwest. My father was, New York East. He was military. 6 kids. We have 3 birthdays for 6 kids. 2 sets of
Hmm.
twins, all born on army bases. I was born in
Oh wow.
Stuttgart, Germany, many years ago, and a year after I was born, within hours, a
Hmm.
brother was born. And
Oh wow.
so, and then another set of twins. We ended up in coming from South Carolina in Vermont, and my father had a job there. And so, fourth grade in Vermont, rural, 5 towns feeding the school system. Like the high
Hmm.
school graduating class, which I did make it through finally, was 31. I'm telling you, listen, at 15 years old, I was selected to go to an international camp for citizenship, and it was in Great Falls, Montana. And so I had to go
Okay.
to New York City, get on a bus with other people from around the world, a lot of people just from New York City, Harlem, Spanish Harlem, Long Island, but representing different cultures. And we all ended up in Great Falls. What a summer. I was probably the youngest guy. Most of them were seniors. I was like
Uh-huh.
a sophomore, which in those days, as you know, in high school, that's a big difference between a senior and
Yeah.
a sophomore. Anyway, but I loved it. I came home and I realized I don't have to stay here. I have friends now. I can go in,
Yeah.
you know. And I will say, preface this, that we were in Vermont. I said I was in fourth grade. We were in Vermont for a year and a half. My father passed on.
So after high school, your plan to actually get out, it worked spectacularly, apparently, because you
Yes.
went into the Navy
Yep.
and you found yourself stationed in Antarctica. So the Navy has a lot of the great places they can send a guy, like Pearl Harbor, San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
Pensacola. Who'd you take off to wind up at McMurdo?
Oh, it's interesting that you say tick off.
Yeah.
Well, that's more like a check off
Yeah,
because
yeah.
when I got my orders, I was in San Diego in A
Uh-huh.
school. You go to boot camp. I was in Great Falls. I keep thinking Great Falls.
Great
I
Lakes,
was
Michigan,
Great
yeah.
Lakes. Thank you. And then ended up in San Diego for A school. I was a yeoman, so I was going to work
Uh-huh.
in the commanding officers thing. And so we got through with the course, and we were receiving our orders that morning. And the two instructors of the class were standing there. And they said, "Now I'm just going to tell you, some of you are going to end up on, blah blah, and you're going to probably end up on a sub, and some on this and that. So just hang in there. This is the way it's going to go. A few years, you probably get other orders. So this
Hmm.
here we go." So started reading things off, and they got to Jones. Good God. and, and, and the one guy shows it to the other guy, and they look at each other. They go, Cheech. And they looked down at me, and then they turned it over, and they wouldn't tell me what it was. And then they kept going through the stack. Diaz, you're going here. Smith, over here. Blah, 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 over here, over here. Said, "Okay, Jones." And they said it before they even picked it back up. "Jones, I don't know how you got this, but you're going to Christchurch, New Zealand to
Uh-huh.
be a part of the Antarctic um, uh, uh, research program working for the National Science Foundation, flying planes around
Uh-huh.
Antarctica. And every word that was said, I was just, oh, oh, this sounds good. And they said, you got some good orders, son.
Yeah.
And they saw it as good because Christchurch, New Zealand, was quite a place. We're actually stationed out of Point Mugu, California, just north of Malibu.
Right.
And Christchurch is a staging base, has been, is now, and has been for McMurdo, the main
Mm-hmm.
U.S. base. And when I got there to Point Mugu, by the time I got there, people were coming back from Antarctica. The season is over in February. It's October to February is the
Right.
season. And it's the austral summer in the southern hemisphere in
Uh-huh.
Antarctica. And I'm sitting in the enlisted men's club opposite a guy who seemed a little cocky, but he was sitting there and he was going, "So you're new?" I said, "Yeah, yeah. When did you get here?" Blah, blah, blah. I said, "What's that on your chest?" He said, "Parachute wings." I said, "What?" "Parachute wings."
Wings.
He said, "Where'd you get them?" "I earned them." I'm going, tough nut. And he said, "I'm a member of the Antarctic Parachute Rescue Team." And he looked at me. He said, "Are you interested?" I said, "Antarctic Pararescue Team? You mean you jump? You skydive?" "Yes, and mountain climb." "I'm in." He said,
So
"Well,
you're
good
down
luck."
here at the literal edge of the world and think to yourself, this isn't adrenaline enough. I want to learn how to yeet out of a perfectly good airplane onto the ice planet Hoth down here. There's a line from the Pixar movie Finding Nemo where Crush the Turtle says, "You got serious thrill issues, dude."
that's, that's,
This is
I've never heard that. I probably have as I walked through the room while my children were listening to it.
yeah,
But it was 6 months of training, and it was so totally up my alley that I became, learned Antarctic survival and learned all kinds of different overland.
right.
We had a weasel, the old, just old track vehicle, little mini track vehicle, using
Yeah,
that to get to different places. We'd take it out to snow caves and climb around them because we were doing rescue
right,
techniques. And we worked with which was very exciting, was working with the New Zealand mountaineers from Mount Cook, from the Hermitage. And these guys were world class. And they
right.
became world class. They were young. All of them, most of them, they were all older, but like my best guy that I became closest to, Gary Ball, was a couple years older. And he's a famous guy that was with Rob Hall. And they did the first two guys to do 7 summits of the world in seven
Right.
months. Now, that record has just been obliterated with the way people climb the highest mountains on each continent these days and the speed with which they get from one place to the other and get right up.
Curiosity, how busy was it being a pararescue guy in Antarctica? Because I mean, I tend to think of the kind of people who wind up down there. These are like professional scientific expeditions. These are people who have all the equipment. They have contingency plans on top of contingency plans. It's not like you have cruise ships dropping a horde of German tourists in socks and sandals going, "We want to pet the penguins," and getting
Mm.
themselves into trouble. But yeah, how often did you guys have to do pararescue in that
Well, first,
environment?
first of all, these scientists had to be trained.
Yeah,
They had to understand until you're in Antarctica, there is no uh, it's just undeniable the changes in weather and the extremes, and you can read
hmm,
about it. You can get your triple padded down jackets, the Antarctic support jackets that are red. And but when it comes to gear and your survival gear, your sleeping gear, you're not bringing it. It's there.
right.
It's a part, and there are individuals that actually create the kit for the expedition. But the expedition could be 3 people, 5 people
Right.
that are being dropped from a C-130. C-130 lands, dropped
Hmm.
off from a C-130 at a lat long that they want to do a core
Okay.
sample. They want to do a core sample of the ice. Excuse me. Or they're testing. So they have that gear and that's been provided and they've been instructed on how to set things up. And they're there
Okay.
for it could be anything from three, a couple of nights, there are no nights. There's just hours.
Yeah.
it's,
That time of
it's,
year, yeah.
yeah, it's just sunshine. It's wild when, at 2 in the morning, at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, it's like 4 in the afternoon. It's just the
Right.
sun's there. And so our time was spent training all the time
Okay.
and then receiving training and skydiving into certain areas. We were skydivers. We weren't static line. We were jumping high performance canopies back then. The
Right.
Stratostar and Stratocloud, the Ram Air Cell mattresses, just came out in 1975.
So after you got out of the Navy, you came back to the States
Hmm.
and you enrolled in acting school because, of course, that's what guys who spent the last few years jumping out of planes in the Antarctic, that's what they all do. So, what was it about acting? Why acting?
Well, in Vermont, I had done a couple of plays. There was a fellow, an English teacher, Paul Kren, came from Chicago, and he was just, I mean, the guy was so different than anyone in Vermont. Vermont was very rural. People still
Mm-hmm.
talk like this,
Yeah.
how you doing? Well, geez, I'm crawl. What's going on? I mean, it was rural. It was
Right.
farm. It was cattle. It was
Right.
haying in the summertime. I did all those things,
Uh-huh.
growing up, learning how to throw a bale of hay up. And Paul came and he was a director. He had done some theater in Chicago and he went, got in with the community theater in the town next door and he invited me in. He saw something in me and asked me to be a part of a play. And when my mother and grandmother saw the play, they just said, "Oh, he's so good." It's talking about me. And I'm telling you, all I did was stand on stage next to Duke Orsino in the Shakespearean play with a ring on my finger and be regal. That was it.
No lines, just
No lines. And seriously, and I was shrimping in the Gulf of Mexico. I was out of the service for a week. I was visiting my brother, who was a rig man on a shrimp boat,
Mhm.
and there was a storm, came in, there was a death. I was involved as a rescue guy. I mean, I was the first one on the scene. Someone
Mhm.
saw it when I went down to check it out. The body was down below. Flywheel flew off his new beautiful boat down below in the engine room, and it knocked him out cold. He just died.
Right.
But anyway, I had enough of it. It was the roughest, toughest group of people I'd ever been around. And at that time, I was tanned, short blonde hair, wore glasses, and very fit. And that was not the beach crowd. I mean, I looked like some, it wasn't. These guys were packing knives, a bottle of tequila in one back pocket, a big billfold chained to their body, and a whole lot of cash. And
Yeah.
with the storm, everybody was in a bar, and I bumped into a guy. It was so packed when we came in. I bumped a guy's cue stick, and when he stood up, I swear to goodness, he had to be. It seemed like he was a foot taller than I was. I'm
Right.
6'3", and he was the
Yeah.
ugliest thing to look at. Anyway, I needed to get out of there. I called my mother and I said, I've got to make a decision. I need to go to school. I know that. And I want to study English. And she said, you should look into theater.
Okay.
I said, are you sure? You really think that? Yes. I truly believe with the way you are, your desire to be something, you'll be able to do Shakespeare. You can be princes and kings and you can do research and blah, blah, blah. So I did.
Okay.
And it went very well.
And so this, I mean, had a very major career within theater, and
Hmm.
as I alluded to during the intro there, but you eventually came to this decision to write this book, A Line in the Sand. And where did the fascination with Lawrence of Arabia really start for
The
with you?
movie,
Was
the
that
movie.
was from the movie?
I
And
saw
when
it.
did you see
Yeah,
that? Is that as a kid?
I saw it when I was young. Hmm, I must have seen it in high school. You
Right.
know,
Okay.
and it was so unusual, and I kind of forgot about it. But when I was acting, I realized I couldn't make money consistently. I wasn't in films, I was doing theater and
Mm-hmm.
commercials and daytime soap operas. And
Okay.
I kept things alive, but now I'm suddenly married and I have children. And it
Right.
was like I thought I need a one man show. I had seen Hal Holbrook when I was in Santa Barbara. I went to school in Santa Barbara for acting.
Uh huh.
And then I left and went to, it was either LA or New York. So I went to New York. But I had met Hal Holbrook. After I had seen his show, and I talked with him about doing a one man show. And I said I was thinking about Lawrence of Arabia, and he said that's a great idea. And
A
I
six
said
foot three
yes.
Lawrence of Arabia. Yes.
And I Kenneth, exactly what was on my. I said to him, "How? T.E. Lawrence was 5 feet 5.5. There's no way I can do it." I said I was thinking about doing it. He said, "Get a bigger chair."
Hey.
You know, I'm still 6'3". You know, come on. So that was my initiation. Was looking into Lawrence, and the first time I picked up Seven Pillars of Wisdom, the book that he
Right.
wrote, and I really didn't find out for a while that he was 5 foot 5 feet and a half. In the meantime, family. I had done. I had met Miles Spencer, and like it says in A Line in the Sand, the book we wrote together.
Mm-hmm.
The day we met, we just became lifelong friends. It was just an immediate. You know, I've got a handful of years over him, but he's brilliant. We've worked together on television PBS shows. We've done Kayak for a Cause, which is an adventure with purpose. We inspired people to raise money, form a pod of 10, raise
Mm-hmm.
money to give to charities. We'll have a party on the beach after we come back from a paddle across Long Island Sound, 12 miles plus.
Right.
It went well, inspired people. 313 kayaks is the largest number. It's a Guinness record of sea kayaks launched at one time.
Oh wow.
And, and we raised enough money to bring in Neville Brothers. I mean, I was doing the production because I'm a production guy.
Mm-hmm.
I brought in Neville Brothers. I brought in Dickie Betts, different years, the
Mm-hmm.
Whalers, you know, all a
Right.
number of people, and then locals. But wrote checks of $50,000 to 5 charities raised
Okay.
from the money raised. And so Miles and I had a very tight, and we also toured the country going to venture capital conferences to select someone to be on our television show that Miles created called Money Hunt. It was a PBS
Okay.
series that they ran. And we started in '05 to make inroads on how to get into the country. And that was the key because we wanted to follow T.E. Lawrence's path during the Arab Revolt, World War I,
Yep.
from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, north to Yambo, Waja, up to Aqaba, which was a turning point in the war, just
Mm-hmm.
like it shows in the movie,
Right.
and and go through Jordan, and of course spin off to different places to see. We wanted to go to Petra, of course, but
Right.
we were following Lawrence's path all the way up to Damascus, and then getting into Israel. Why Lawrence? Because he was a Westerner. He worked with the people. He understood all the different cultures.
Right.
He loved them. He
And was
learned the
instrumental
language.
in disrupting supply lines and ultimately driving the Turks up. Just for people who are not familiar with the story of T. Lawrence and Lawrence of Arabia, because for a lot of us, it might have been a 5 minute blurb in a history class back in school. So a lot of people may not be familiar, but it's a great story if you've never actually, there's some great books out there, and watch the movie for a primer on it. So,
Yeah, thank you
yeah.
for adding that. That was coming right out of
Uh-huh.
my mouth. The next thing, because of his involvement as a young man and his work with the museum, the head of the museum became the man in charge of the Cairo Bureau, and it was an intelligence group. And when they needed someone to identify an Arab that would help rally the Arabs,
Right.
they turned to Lawrence, and then
Yeah.
he did his work disrupting the lines. He wasn't about killing the Turks and Germans. He was about
Uh-huh.
disrupting the supply
Clean the
lines,
lines.
and it's called guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
And in 19, what was it, 36? No,
No, it was World
29.
War One. This would have been before that. Yeah.
Well, he wrote. Speaking of that, he wrote the definition for
Yeah.
guerrilla warfare in the Encyclopedia Britannica, which used to be the Wikipedia or the AI
Uh-huh.
of,
Yeah.
of back then. I mean, every family had to have all the encyclopedias for a while there, right?
So this is kind of where the whole that I refer to, the OG overlanding on camels thing, because I mean the route that T. Lawrence followed during this uprising was basically middle of the desert. I mean, they were basically
Mm,
mostly kind of following. There was a train railway system that came down. That was the kind of the heart of the supply lines for the Turks during this time. So
correct. It
disrupting
was
that,
went
they
to
did this kind of in a hopping, fashion here from point to point to finally kick them out. But it was definitely something that was not, this was not built up. There were no highways or anything back in Lawrence's time. And I don't imagine it's very built up even now, still to this day, the route that you were following. It's still pretty much out there, right?
it. Well, the railway line was from um, Damascus, getting down to Medina,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's for Hajj. It's
Yeah.
for the
Uh huh.
pilgrims. I mean, that
Yeah.
was the thought, but really it's about control. And it was a Turkish line built with the Germans. And the Germans during the time were still trying to get a from Baghdad to Berlin line,
Uh huh.
railroad in. What Lawrence realized is that the Arabs had no idea how to fight. They
Right.
weren't a war. They war. There were tribal issues and there were shootings between
Mm-hmm.
tribes, but not. They didn't know how to fight, and it certainly wasn't conventional. So they're called irregulars. And
Mm-hmm.
what he found out and what he realized is that they have camels. They know the desert. They can slip in and slip out,
Right.
and no one sees them. And they can go
So,
home at
yeah.
night because they disrupted. He said, "You come with me. We blow up the train tracks. The train goes off the track. There'll be some deaths, but you get all the booty."
Right.
And everybody's just going.
Oh, hey,
And
that sounds like.
that was whatever we blow up the tracks, whatever falls off the track is yours.
Yeah.
And
So
so,
before we get into your retrace of the steps, I just wanted to ask this real quick because
mhm,
your book actually starts out in Pamplona. So
mhm.
have you personally ever run with the bulls?
Well, in the book, you find it's about two characters,
Yeah.
Magnus and Finn. And Magnus is Miles, and I am Finn.
Okay.
And the running with the bulls was in 2023 on the 8th of July, the second day of the San Fermin festival, and we were there and we ran with the bulls and we
Oh
ran with
wow.
the bulls. So what you are reading, you know, people have said, okay, tell me what's real in the book and tell me what's not real. Tell me, was that really true, or is this accurate?
There's a
That
part of me that thinks that sounds like that would be an amazing adventure, and I'd love to do that sometime. There's a slightly bigger part of me that looks at that and goes, "That would be a hard no." Thank you. I want to eat the bull. I don't want to run
what,
in front of it.
well, what about skydiving?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, no, that is something that we wanted to do, absolutely.
Okay.
And it worked out in the after October. The book is based on the trek that we did following Lawrence's path.
Right.
We conceived it in '05. It took 8 months to peel it back to get to the actual plane on our way to Jeddah
Right.
in 2006. We are working on a Broadway play with different writers. We have our regular jobs and businesses and children and life. It's taken up to now to get a play. October 7th, 2023, we recognized that the anger that we had seen in the Middle East, in the few places that we saw it significantly in Israel, had changed. It has truly become hatred.
Yeah.
And then with the atrocities for both of us, we talked about this right as it was going on. How bad, how unbearable had it gotten since we'd been there in '06. Actually, we were there through '08, doing other things as well.
Okay.
For those kind of heinous crimes to make that statement.
Right.
Man, just looking at man doing that to man. We've been through the Holocaust. We've seen movies. We've seen TV shows where it's just the most brutal things. Well, anything you can imagine, there it was, bold-faced to complete innocence. Total innocence. And so we realized we had to write the book and join the narrative. We went through 39 checkpoints on that '06 trek. We were trained by a man on how to handle ourselves, our behavior, and our situational awareness. Trained by a very experienced man that was, at the same time he was training us, he was the private secretary to the Queen of England in the care of Prince Harry and Prince William. Security. And he had just worked with Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman for their Long Way Around. So he took us on, and the difference was that we were going into an area of conflict. But we trained for it and then been on top of the news. And some of the castles we've been to, we went to Crac de Chevalier, and during the Syrian revolt, what was it, 10 years ago, when it started, really kicked in, and the North Tower was bombed.
Right.
It's like, it's starting to get personal because we spent so much time the day in the castle, and it's, Lawrence has said that the Chevalier is the most beautifully preserved Crusader castle in the world.
Right.
And to hear it getting bombed. So we wanted to write our narrative, and we did make it historical fiction because we wanted readers to stay with us. We didn't want to give a pedantic offering.
There was a part of me that almost wish you had done it though as a more of a documentary book, because simply there had to have been a lot of pictures that you took. It would have been fascinating to see. It would be fascinating to see some of the stuff that you guys encountered and some of the things that you saw, which you weren't really able to put into a novel type book. So I thought that would have been interesting to see, almost like a coffee table book.
Well, that was the original idea. And then with 9/11, we just wanted to get really Abdul and Jeremy's story out, the young men, the young proteges that are in the book, and the kids that went to Seeds of Hope in the book. But part of our adventure with purpose is that when we raise money to do the adventure, we're guaranteeing a percentage of that money going to a foundation, like we did with Kai for a Cause. And in this case, we identified Seeds of Peace. And if you look up seedsofpeace.org, It is, and I hope you'll cite them. And I've asked all the podcasters to do that. Since
Right.
1993, they've been bringing to Maine, USA,
Mm.
Israeli and Palestinian high school thought leaders together for the
Hmm.
summer for
Okay.
conflict resolution. And we met these people. We met the wife of the man. The man had passed on, and the wife was running the organization in '05. We met with Janet Wallach and
Uh-huh.
told her what we were doing. She set us up to meet former campers, you know,
Right.
guys, people, and women that
Hmm.
were, 15, 16 going to the camp. And as soon as they got home, they're going into the IDF if they were
Right.
Israeli. And so we had stories from that. But the idea was to get a primer on the foundation to the issues
Right.
that has stirred the pot
Okay.
and shook the bee's nest up. And we're not siding with one side or the other, but we do recognize that white man's hubris is just pervasive around the world, especially if you have power.
Mm.
And the one that's had power, the most amount of power,
Right.
even in all of our goodness, is the United States and,
So this
and England.
yeah, this retracing of the steps, this kind of gets into this epic kind of an overland thing, but this was not just a a single modal transportation for you. You guys were on everything from camels to buses and everything in between. It was planes, trains, and
Mm-hmm.
automobiles. Was
Yeah,
how you guys actually took this. So what kind of preparations and planning were involved in preparing for a journey that has that many different, pardon the phrase, but moving parts? I mean, you had a whole lot of different things that kind of had to be brought together and planned and arranged for in order to actually
mm-hmm.
accomplish that route, especially
That's
at that
right.
time.
Because we did have a clock was running. We had just under a month, and it was planned out. And we had very specific stops that we
Mm-hmm.
wanted to make, and so many pieces. Just in terms of the actual journey and the stops, we realized we needed someone or people to assist us that
Yeah.
are there. And so we started looking. Well, it was recommended to us after we decided we needed a travel company. But in 2005, travel companies didn't.
Yeah.
No one was going to get you to a travel company. I mean, if you want to go to Amman, Jordan, and pay what you need to pay to get to Baghdad, I mean, why don't you just join Triple Canopy, Blackwater, or Centurion? What are you
Right.
doing? No one's going there. No one's going there. So we
Well,
found
and
one.
nobody
It's
wanted to get to these places by the kind of route that you wanted to. Well, you go
oh
over here, there's an airport over here, and you fly straight there.
yeah,
That's not the
right.
kind of trip that you were trying to arrange. And I don't imagine there were a lot of travel agencies that were specializing in that kind of a trip in
Only
that
one.
region. Yeah.
Only one
Only
that had
one.
never done anything that was willing to take it on.
Yeah.
And what we had to decide was, what is our intention?
Mm-hmm.
What's the purpose here? Our intention was, we want to see, feel, talk with the people in
Mm-hmm.
their environment. We don't want to be separated by being American or being, having money and being able to do whatever we want, luxury. We want to be on the ground with them. We want to be on the proverbial bus inside the tent.
Right.
Those phrases. And so we were recommended to check in with a company called R. Caruso. And we said right off the bat, ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Robinson Crusoe.
Crusoe.
you know, you know. And we got in touch, and they said, and we'd been told that they had just put the Chicago Symphony Orchestra on top of Machu Picchu. So,
Oh
oh, well,
wow.
at least they know logistics,
Yeah.
you know.
that would
But
involve some.
but
Yeah.
but we're asking for something else. We at the same time we're in discussions with Jamie, our
Mm-hmm.
security man, who's a retired SAS major and was working for the Queen and taking care of business there, and had worked with Ewan McGregor and Charlie. And he said, "You need to fly everywhere." And we said, "No, no, we don't want to
Right.
miss. We want to go along the coast. We want to go up the Hejaz, the Red Sea, to the Gulf of Aqaba, get to
Mm-hmm.
Aqaba." And so that means we need a series of cars and not just one.
Mm-hmm.
And we need as much camouflage as possible. He helped us with that, and just in terms of behavior, getting into town, getting out of town, where to stay, where to be. So our Caruso, we said, if you would be willing to do this, we want you to read Seven Pillars of Wisdom. And the
Right.
man said, I will do that. And so he did. And he figured out how to get local people, one driver to drive us from point A to point B, turn around and go back. And
Okay.
then we would meet the next driver if that was the case, or when that was the case, and nobody knew the other person. There was no, I said, there must be, this is absolute. No one can know the other person involved.
Right. So they wouldn't know where you are at any given time
Nobody
too
would
far into
have,
the future.
yeah,
They only know
right,
where they have you. And then after their
correct.
ride is done.
And it, and they're American. Some could barely speak uh, English,
Mm-hmm.
and others couldn't. And it was just they were to get us from point A to point B. But that's the way we worked with cars, and they weren't Suburbans.
No, no,
it
no,
was,
no. This might have
and
been
there
somebody's
wasn't.
Toyota Corolla or something
There
out here.
was
Yeah.
oh, there was good car. It's like going to like I just got back from Cuba. You see
Uh-huh.
the old cars from the 50s,
Yeah.
and they're still they figured out how to keep them running. But that's the way it was in Saudi
So
Arabia.
a portion of this trip, did you guys actually do some of this retracing this on camel?
Yes, we went instead of coming into Aqaba, we left Aqaba on camel to go through Wadi Rum. And the point of all of that, the significance of that, is that during the war, Lawrence figured out that and found out that the fort in Aqaba, which is a prime strategic point, very
Mm-hmm.
important because it's at the end of the Gulf of Aqaba. The Turks are controlling the water. That's where they get all their supplies, and all their weapons were aimed and cannons at the harbor,
Right.
not behind them.
Because they didn't
They've
expect
even
anybody to come from that direction.
there
Yeah.
was no way anyone would because of the Nafud Desert, and to get into there, it's impossible. Well, Lawrence thought, no, it's not. And so he convinced Faisal and Abu Abdutaya to to do this. And it took months, several months, to
Uh-huh.
do a circuitous route way around and to come back in from behind. And so we left from Aqaba. We outfitted ourselves with uh, dressed like Bedouins,
Uh-huh.
and we waited until we were with the camels. We were driven outside, just outside Aqaba, the town, in the valley where Lawrence came flying through,
Mm-hmm.
and then took the 40 some odd clicks by camel, and for 3 days, 3 nights,
Mm-hmm.
we enjoyed moving through Wadi Rum all over, and it was
So
empty.
was this like a crew that was also on camels? How do you outfit yourself for a trip by camel? But it's
We
a overlanding
identified
or
one.
camel landing.
We identified through our Caruso.
Mm-hmm.
We said we want one guide that's
Mm-hmm.
local, and there's bound to be some people in Wadi Rum, and it's a teeny little village. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's built up now, even since we've been there, and uh, a camel for each of us, and this guy, and if we need a pack camel, then a pack camel. That's what we'll pay for it. That's it. And we
So
went
I
four
imagine
days.
this isn't like the Whisper Light equipment. It's not. What does camp look like when you climb down off of the camel at the end of the day? What does camp look like, or what did it look like for you?
Sand,
But I mean, as
sand.
far as the tent and stuff, was it there?
No, 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 no. We slept on top of carpets.
Oh,
The
okay,
stuff in our sleeping bag, I didn't take. We didn't have a bed pad. We had a
right,
sleeping bag,
okay,
and in our backpack, I could get to what was in our backpack because it was significantly important. Every piece was
right,
vitally important, including a PLB, a personal locator beacon that was brand new, 406 megahertz that we could activate, and we had kidnap and ransom, mortal danger insurance on top of that that would
right.
get
So
help.
you were literally sleeping just out under the stars,
We
and the
were
skies
right.
must have been amazing out there.
Absolutely amazing. The other thing that was amazing that reminded me in the opposite direction was being in the dry valleys years before as a young man, um, in a tent though,
Uh huh.
needed the tent, and the quiet,
Right.
the absolute no sound. The sound you hear is your heart. I mean, it's that quiet.
Yeah.
And then a camel will make a noise, or a bird overhead, the
Hmm.
screeching eagle, but it's just so pure and
Right.
quiet. And that's what Lawrence thought of it. And we
Yeah.
wanted to see, what did we think? And yeah, it was 115, 100. I think it got up to about 118, but 115, yes.
Hmm. So not cool weather, but
No,
it
but
cools off
and
at
we were
night though
wearing.
in the desert.
It sure does. And the thing is, Kenneth, is that having that kit, look, when it came to buying our gear, and what are we going to wear for trousers? What are we going to wear for shoes? What kind of a
Hmm.
backpack are we going to take? It's not going to be the big one, burly 60-liter backpack.
Right.
It's going to be a 35, and it's got
Yeah.
to fit each of us everything we want for a month here in
Yeah.
this. And so, um, taking off the boots, the shoes,
Hmm.
socks, putting on, it's like putting on, Tai Chi pants, very, very thin pajama pants,
Yeah.
drawstring at the top, and then putting on the dish dash. And the
Hmm.
keffiyeh was essential. The keffiyeh I mean, it kept the flies off, it kept the heat. It's thin layers to keep the insulation, just like you do in the cold.
Well, it also helps keep you from standing out too much to anybody that might be passing by or have bad intentions. You don't
There's no
stand
one
out nearly as
around.
much.
There,
Yeah.
there's no one around, Kenneth. We're talking. We did run into a French group. A guide was taking some French campers
Hmm.
with horses, with Arabian horses, through a part of the desert, and they were in a tent, a
Right.
camel's hair tent, and we were invited. We stopped and were invited in to have some tea, some
Okay.
sweet tea with them. They were taking a break, and we had seen them miles away at one point, and then we were just going in and out of all the different formations for several days, just
Yeah.
covering all kinds, to get the feel of
Right.
the wind, gallop on these camels. Camels were going 35, 40 miles an hour.
Right.
And
Wow.
at that
That's
odd,
fast.
yes, it is. We were racing each other, and it was just fantastic. There were three camels, and basically the biggest supply that we had was of water.
Uh huh.
And Saba was our guide, and he had it in, strapped to the side of his camel.
Uh huh.
And the food was a lot of vegetables and some chicken and some rice, and it was made with just a tiny, tiny little fire from little scrub that had blown around because there's no firewood.
Right.
So
So yeah, what was
the
their cooking
fires are
method?
literally this. Oh, it's just a teeny little fire,
Yeah.
and Saba would throw a piece of pita bread on top of that, and then we
Uh-huh.
would have hummus and oil, and have tomato and chunks of
Oh, wow.
cucumber, and that's the way we ate.
Okay.
You know?
S- Yeah. So I know that we've touched on this before, but you frequently talk, and I've encountered this in some of your writings and in some of your other interviews. But you talk a lot about travel with purpose.
Mhm.
Would you want to like really kind of pin that down? What's your definition of travel with purpose, and what does that mean to you?
Travel with purpose is that there's an intention of to discover. It's an openness to
Hmm.
discovery, based like you opened this podcast with.
Right. Hmm.
It's a 360-degree immersion, and so our purpose, the adventure, was to see with our own eyes, to be calm enough in the situations, and we were in. I mean, it was varied. When I say we went through 39 checkpoints, some people have said, "Oh, well, you go through one, you guys,
Yeah, they're
every
different.
checkpoint." Right, exactly. And so it was to be open to that, and then the challenge was the fatigue.
Right.
True, um, the wearing down. I mean, the focus was so open and so clear and so calm and
Hmm.
quiet, and always alert. In the desert, there was no one there other than the French. And we went
Right.
in, and they were, Miles, fortunately, can speak French, and they were like, "Who are these?" He said, what they were saying is, "Who's that one on the left? I mean, look at
Uh,
him. Why are they wearing Bedouin clothes? They're
that's
clearly Americans. Isn't that just like Americans to, just to." So that was great. Even just to regressing in the guide, the guide, their guide was sitting. I was sitting next to him, and he was incensed that we were wearing Bedouin kit. Now these French were in. I mean, oh, the women's hair was braided. They had little diamonds in their ears. They had jodhpurs on. They had gorgeous boots. They were riding horses through the desert, and they had, not safari hats, but similar, like with the sunscreen cloth in the back, but elegant. We
Right,
come
but I
in,
mean, the Bedouin clothes are something that it's an outfit that has evolved over centuries.
yes,
Many
yes,
centuries by these people. So you would think that it's kind of adapted to the environment that you find. You would think that it would be probably the most practical thing to wear is let's follow the lead of the locals because they probably know something about this place that maybe I
yeah.
don't.
Well,
So
there are no locals where we were.
yeah.
You have to understand that there's vast, looking 30 miles out, there's nothing
Hmm.
there. There's no telephone, there's no airplanes, there's no sound, there's no railroads. There was this one group and us. And there is, you might see a track cross a track of an SUV, a
Uh huh.
Toyota that's flown through. But
Right.
so no one sees, but this guide who was dressed like we were
Uh huh.
turned to me, and could speak English, and he said, "Why?" And he was just, was attitude. "Why are you wearing Bedouin?" And I thought, and I looked down. He had a pair of black pointed loafers and black socks on for shoes. And I said, "First, why are you wearing black pointed Italian loafers in the desert?"
And this was her guide.
Before this, we were on to something, and I regressed back to this, but
Yeah.
the desert and um, the experience of being with people, that was on camels. and that was
Yeah.
very significant. And we made friends with Saba. And when we wrapped up this trip, we went to his village. We were never in a village, but we went to Wadi Rum,
Hmm.
and he
Right.
invited us into his home. I mean, his home was it was like Appalachia.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think. It was. You would say this is total poverty, and the flies around the gas grill where he's
Hmm.
grilling, and the little curtain that's torn up where you take you bathe, but the
Right.
bathing was with a broken carton, plastic carton
Hmm.
bowl, and you pour it over your head. And believe me, it felt so good.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
it wasn't having shampoo and conditioner and a
Yeah.
scrubbing,
Yeah.
you know, and then sitting down and having dinner. And he brought in his friends to meet the Americans,
Right.
you know, and it was just fantastic. It was just so caring and giving, you know. And
Hmm.
Miles says, I think of the number of times we said we can't have people over because we're renovating the room over here,
Hmm.
and he said, never again, never again, because the lawn's not mowed, you know,
Right.
can't have that. I mean, that concept as an Americans, we have to have it just
Yeah.
in order to have, but so the people and seeing the people, for instance, being on the bus, that was the most significant. It stood out the most from Jamie's instructions. He said, I do not think that you should go across the King Hussein Allenby Bridge
Uh-huh.
from Jordan into Israel. It's not a good time to do that.
Uh-huh.
We were aware that, we've seen the terrorists blow up buses, and that's a quick way to get
Hmm.
attention. But being on that bus it was brilliant,
Right.
hot, and it wasn't about me, or Miles and us and our. We felt we positioned ourselves properly on the bus, just like we say in the book.
Yeah.
But it's the faces, the people looking up, and we stood out. Of course we did, you
Yeah.
know, and that's okay. But when you sit there for 45 minutes and the bus not moving, you really start to wonder, like, how long has it been? It's keeping track of
Hmm.
things and watching who's outside. When the driver opens up his side window, was he talking to someone? It's
Right.
not concern. It's just track it,
Hmm.
know where you are. And and then, of course, talking with people and having a meal with Saba, having a
Right.
meal with all the people that we had meals. Traditional meal is, a goat sitting on a very large, it's almost like a 3 foot serving plate that's got
Uh-huh.
at least 5 gallons of rice on top. And then there's a goat. And you've got cauliflower and red onion that are decorations around the edge. And then the cool thing is really interesting. I'm not into Coca
Hmm.
Cola, but it's a can that says it's white, it says cola. it's on the side,
That actually
sitting where.
reminds me of. I thought that was a really nice touch on the book, though, was the recipes in the back.
Oh, that's Miles.
Yeah,
Yep.
I absolutely love those, and there's a couple of those that I've tried. So there's the baba ganoush. Yes.
Did you like
So
it?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Kenneth, that's great. I'm going to let Miles know that you actually you've
Yeah,
made a couple of things.
yeah,
It was great. You know, just love.
yeah.
Yeah,
But I thought that was a
totally.
really nice touch for the book on there.
Yeah,
So
we're doing it with our next book
as
as well. Anyway.
yeah, that's a question that I'm going to get into. But your bio, I wanted to also give you an opportunity to talk about this because your bio mentions that you're into doing summit climbs, and I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you, do you have a favorite, or a couple of what are your favorites out of those that you've done?
Well, I'm like a homing pigeon. I find what's near home that's
Uh huh.
doable, and
Right.
and and make it as rigorous as I can. And I find that once I am able to go around something, run it, then I want to do it, on one foot. I want to
Right.
do it. That's just a concept. It's not reality. I find uh, when I was doing Baldy is a 12,622 foot peak.
Hmm.
And I did some, it's just been probably a couple of years since I've done Baldy. I do one that's next to it that's 200
Uh-huh.
feet less,
Okay.
and it's closer to my house. So
Right.
time wise, so what I find the most interesting is and unique is the weather. It's the
Right.
weather that makes it, because I am not, in some cases like on Baldy, I did get off trail because I knew the ravine, so I would go through the ravines and snow
Hmm.
and rain and different things. But I've been on Baldy when well, actually on Deception as well, when the wind was 70 miles an hour, and I knew it kind of going into it, and I knew
Uh-huh.
where it was going to absolutely pick up. It's right at the
Right.
saddle, and I would see what I could do.
Okay.
How far can I go? And that kind of thing, and being willing to turn around, finding that sweet spot of no
Right.
more.
Right.
And because what happens is that when you get up early in the morning like that, because I get up now regularly at 4:15, 4:15 in the
Mm.
morning. But getting up at 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning, getting out the door, either if it's summertime, I ride a jacket to the trailhead, whichever trailhead it is, that it's hiking in the dark with a headlamp.
Uh-huh.
And it's early in the morning, different weather. But by
Right.
the time you get up closer to the summit, it's first light because there's a good amount of time
Hmm.
before the sun rises. But when you get to the top of the mountain, I'm above everything, way
Right.
up, above everything else. So when the sun comes up, it's a different sunrise what I'm seeing than what they're seeing in town.
Yeah. Hmm. Absolutely.
And so I you know, check that and allow for that. The most outstandings are the have been the turnarounds
Right. Okay.
because it's been such a rigorous hike to get as far as I could go. And when you get to the point, like with the wind, where you lift your foot and it's like an outrigger and it spins you around, and then you
Uh-huh.
have to crawl, it's like, enough. But it's been wonderful moments of seeing bighorn sheep on the side
Yeah.
of mountains. It's
Yeah, I
been
didn't know
wonderful,
if there was yeah, specific peaks that you've done geographically, some
right?
that were like more favorite than that were more
Yes,
spectacular than others, or what some of your
Baldy's,
favorites. One is Baldy's
Baldy
definitely.
locally, yes. And the first time I did the Sunrise Summit doing Bierstadt in
Uh-huh.
Colorado, a 14er. And
Okay.
the greatest achievement was getting through the reeds down below because there's a reed field. And
Right.
the first time I did it with my son Casey, and it was like, Casey, over here. No, Dad, it's the way is over here. And I've talked to some Colorado guys that know what I'm talking about, and they said, well, when were you doing that? I said, in '05, '06. I said, oh no, there's a bridge. They built a. I go, you really? But
I didn't
it
know if I was
was,
going in circles in this. Yeah.
it is, and I read it in
It's that
in
thing.
the 14er book. It's like, now when you get to the reeds, you know you're at the trailhead, but you have to get through the reeds to get up the mountain, and that's the
Right.
challenge. Hang, stay to this side or that side or whatever it is, but it's the questioning is what I'm getting at.
Right,
And
right.
sometimes the questioning, particularly when it's a foggy
Excuse me. Mm.
when it's a foggy night,
Yeah.
and it plays tricks with your head. I mean, in the very beginning, it was fear. Fear was the
Right.
biggest challenge to overcome. In Colorado, I was thinking mountain lions, mountain lions. It's like you got to get your mind off that, focus on where you are, and keep going, and
Right.
don't stress yourself out. So I was learning to and finding the confidence. And I always
Hmm.
have a survival knife on my chest.
Right.
And but I never the thought of using it, or I open up avocados. That's what I use it for.
Yeah, that's not going to help you much against a mountain lion anyway, because
No.
they're ambush uh, preyers and or ambush hunters anyway. So you're
Yeah.
usually not going to have time to be reaching for a knife. You know, you're
Right.
already down by the time they touch you.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I've heard about getting big, and yeah, backpack off, get anyway.
yeah,
But
that's if
it
you're face
is
to face, but you're rarely going to be face to face with one of those. So
right, right.
because they're usually
So
going to be up above you somewhere, you won't even know they're there before until
mhm,
they're already. So it's definitely head on a swivel in that and their areas here.
mhm.
So we're coming up here on about an hour and a half. Was there something else that you
Whoa.
wanted to talk about, or that you wanted to introduce into the conversation
Well,
that we haven't
no,
already
I
discussed?
there's been so much discussed. I
Yeah,
think
we've
that for people to get out and to have a level of adventure, in
yeah,
their lives,
absolutely
and to explore the curiosity, because I find and I do it daily. This morning, not, but I was on a mountain yesterday and I swam the day before. Tomorrow, I'll do an open water swim. But just to get out and engage with something that's undeniable, and that's not a Facebook page, Instagram. It's a direct experience where you're breathing it
correct.
in, and I found that for myself, doing solo
Hmm.
sunrise summits, which I do. Now I get up before the sunrise because I do a smaller mountain, but it's still being engaged and being out and smelling the air and hearing the birds wake up and seeing the blossoms along the trail, you know,
And it's just the
pop.
engagement of your curiosity. It can be something as simple as, hey, I wonder where that gravel road goes. Let's go find out. It's
Right.
the engaging and your curiosity is
Correct.
kind of really what will
Correct.
lead you to where you need to go on this. But you definitely
Yeah.
need to get yourself out of that rut and just go explore. Is really
It's
kind
the
of what the name of
youthful
the game
side
is.
of it. It's the youthful
Exactly.
side of us. And
Exactly.
it's a wonderful quality to bring back, because you'll naturally temper it with safety and stuff like that, but to
Hmm.
explore it. For me, when I drive or I'm riding, and this ride that I did to California, when did I come back? A week ago. And
Right.
it's to head out at 4 in the morning
Uh-huh.
from Ventura, to go through on 126 through Santa Clarita, is it Santa Clara, Clarita? Anyway, to see that first light start bringing the shadows of the trees and
Hmm.
the fields alive, and just to experience, it just gives your soul, your heart, a vision. It's just something that feeds, I find, and the people I talk with that haven't
Right.
experienced and then experience, it's just feeds a balance, it just removes some of the heaviness
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
is so pervasive around us. And we must find ways to do that, because we can't fight City Hall, or the government doing this or that, but to get out and to be engaged and
Exactly.
conscious.
Yeah. So again, the book is called A Line in the Sand. Tell us where the audience can find the book if they're
You
if
can
they're looking
We're
for
on
it.
Amazon, Kenneth,
Yeah.
on Amazon, and there is a Kindle book, there's a paperback, and there's a Audible that's done by Eduardo Ballerini. If
Hmm.
anyone is into Audible books, you probably know of Eduardo Ballerini. He's done many, many, many. He's
Okay.
won, the international award, and it just happened he was available. He did our book, and he did a fine job.
Job
So
of
it's
it.
in those
Yeah.
formats. I would also, if anyone was interested in the conflict that's going on, check out Seeds of Peace,
Right.
please, folks. You know, We have another book we're working on. I got back from Havana, and then I went to California on my bike, but I
Uh-huh.
spent some time in Havana, Cuba, and it was an eye opener. I've done a lot of research like we did for A Line in the Sand.
Okay.
And we will have a travel device, a time travel device, like we did in A Line in the Sand, which was a dagger that allows us to go forward or backwards in history to a
Uh-huh.
point in time with wherever we are standing to see what was happening, at a certain time in history. And that's the way the history is being portrayed in our
Okay.
stories. So that's what's going on in our world, my world,
So
and
yeah, that
I
was going to
really
be my
enjoy
next
it.
question: is it whether you had any other projects on the horizon there? So definitely keep an eye out for that as well. Watch this space. Are you writing it with the? Are you co-authoring it with the same
Yes, we
person? Okay,
absolutely
so
are. Yep,
okay,
yep.
awesome.
And the book is called Havana Familia, and
Okay.
um, and there's some skydiving in it.
Oh
Hmm.
wow. Okay.
Yes.
New twist there.
Well, we want to keep you on your toes there, Kenneth.
Okay.
Bull. I don't know what we do with the third one. I mean, running with the bulls and skydiving, it's they're different. But the running with the bulls was pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Pretty
It
fantastic.
would have been fantastic when I was a younger man. I don't know.
Yeah,
There's too much to the brain right now that probably rightfully says, yeah, no, that's a hard pass.
yeah,
Where I am now, so
yeah. No, I understand. I think I was probably the oldest guy on the course in
yeah.
2023. You know, but I was grateful to be there, and I was prepared for it.
Alrighty, so again, my guest today has been Wells Jones. Look for his book, A Line in the Sand, on Amazon, as he says, or wherever you find good books. Listen, Wells, thanks for taking the time out to talk to us. It's been great having you on the show.
Kenneth, thanks so much. I really enjoyed meeting you, and what you're up to is awesome. Truly, have at
All
it.
right.
Continue.
Thank you very much, Wells.
Take care.
Okay, you too. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Dirt Road Tourist. Thanks for watching or listening, depending on where you're finding the show. Be sure to tune in next time when I talk about preparations for our upcoming trip to Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Yeah, that one's right around the corner and coming up fast. I may drop a reference to another famous author, Ernest Hemingway. Hey, if you know, you know. Until then, have a great week. Go see something amazing.